A lot of response today. I'll play the clip, not because it's an endorsement, but just to set the stage for what I'm going to say in response. And in response to a couple of people that have reached to us. So Ben Roethlisberger, I believe this is his own podcast that he does.
Yeah, Footbahlin.
Sure.
You've never heard of
Believe it or not,
Footbahlin?
I haven't spent a lot of time with the Ben Roethlisberger hour. I'm sure it's got great musical numbers. I'm sure that it's wonderful.
He's got Steelers players on all the time.
It sounds like it'd be right up my alley. Here's Ben Roethlisberger on, what is it called?
Footballin.
Isn't he? All right, I don't want to talk. It's not the day. Like, shouldn't his brand be bigger than this? I know he's complicated.
Let's talk about the Steelers.
I understand that.
He's a lifetime Steeler.
Like that's sort of my point. Like his brand, we're talking about a guy that won a couple of Super Bowls, right? Like we're talking about a Hall of Famer. Like,
so you're saying he should be Matt Ryan, like instead of Matt Ryan on the CBS.
And I get that not everybody wants to do that, but it just feels like his brand should be bigger than playing to Pittsburgh stereotypes and I'm only for Yinzers.
He loves that time.
Like, my brand is not bigger than this. Clearly, this is my brand. His brand.
Some would argue, is it even?
Yeah, it's fair. You're not wrong. His brand, you would think, should just be, but that's a conversation for another day. It's a whole different thing. All right, this is what here. Just listen.
If I was trying to pinpoint why, I would just say that, and I want to say this with all due respect, right? When you say it with all due respect, I think you can say anything you want.
Right.
Really?
I think.
Anything?
So I think people in the South feel that way.
Oh, well, let me get my notes.
Literally say either bless their heart or with all due respect.
With all due respect, sir.
I'm going to say this because I appreciate this guy. I think he's a really, really good coach. He's a Miami, Ohio guy.
Hey.
But to be honest, I really think that Mike Tomlin's cooking in Harbaugh's kitchen. He's all in that. He's all up in here. Brownies. He's Chef Evan up there.
Oh.
He's Chef Evan up in the kitchen.
Wow, good for you,
just
Coach
cooking.
T.
I think that Tomlin's out coaching him. And it's not just Tomlin. It's not just head and head, but taking the time out before the 2-point conversion at the end of the game to see what they're in, and then I just think that the way that Coach Belichick used to out-coach certain teams,
yeah,
it feels like that's what we're doing to them. We're just out-coaching them.
So, a couple of responses to this. The first being, even if it's true, and I think it's totally not only possible, I think I would tell you that I think that Mike Tomlin's a better coach than John Harbaugh. Even if that's true, it's still an oversimplification of the story. Why did that suddenly start now? Why, for the majority of the John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin era, where, frankly, the Steelers were better, why did John Harbaugh out-coach Mike Tomlin then, but not now? Is John Harbaugh a worse coach? Did something legitimately? I'm asking this question. When Lamar Jackson arrived, did John Harbaugh suddenly forget how to coach against the Steelers? Knew how to before, but then suddenly forgot. And I don't ask that question to be trite. I ask it because where there is a point to be made, we then get lost. I think Mike Tomlin's a better coach than John Harbaugh is. But that's I think overall as basketball players, LeBron James is better than Steph Curry. Overall. Is that me saying that I think Steph Curry stinks?
It might be.
No! That's insanity. He's the second or third best basketball player of a generation. It just might be that one guy's better than him. And we get lost in this stuff. Does it matter? This is the argument somebody would use for, here's why you have to move on from John Harbaugh. Okay, well, is Mike Tomlin available? Because if he is, hell yeah, brother. Like, you get to the end of the season, all of a sudden the Steelers are like, yeah, we're done here. And Mike Tomlin calls you up and is like, hey, I kind of want to be the coach there. Well, like, all right, let's talk. I'm in.
Belichick, is that a...
This is the bizarro world that we live in, where we cling to something that might be true. It might very well be true that Mike Tomlin's a better coach than John Harbaugh. That might be the case. But trying to make that the reason why the Ravens lost the game on Sunday, or the reason why John Harbaugh can't win a Super Bowl, or whatever you want to say in your brain to pacify yourself, there is no connective tissue. I think Mike Tomlin's a better coach than John Harbaugh. But does that explain why Justin Tucker missed 2 kicks on Sunday? Because Mike Tomlin's a better coach than John Harbaugh? Is that what explains that? When John Harbaugh's team in 2014 went into Pittsburgh and beat Ben Roethlisberger and company in the playoffs, like, that was that not these same 2 coaches? Like, am I missing? Like, this is the problem. The problem is we convince ourselves that there's some correlation between these 2 things. I think Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. Did he win the Super Bowl every year?
Not every year.
Weird.
Felt like it, though.
It did for a little while, right? But other teams, the Ravens won a Super Bowl
While Bill
during
Belichick was,
the Bill Belichick era. Did they beat Bill Belichick?
I think they actually beat them in Foxborough. Right?
No, that can't be.
By a touchdown. By 2 touchdowns.
That's crazy because he's the best coach of the era, so clearly they could never beat him, right? Because they aren't as good. Like, this is the nonsense that we spew because we're just, and it's losing replacement theory. That's what we do. And I mean this. Whenever the team loses, we have to well, they only lost because blank. To pacify ourselves. There's a million reasons why the Ravens lost the game on Sunday. A million. I don't know where the difference between Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh is on that list. I don't. Because I don't think I think Mike Tomlin might be a better coach than John Harbaugh, but I think John Harbaugh's top 5. And that makes some people really frustrated. But part of that is, look around the NFL. They all stink. All of them. The thing that we continue to do is, I don't think my guy's good enough. But you can't invent new options. You just come up with, well, whoever it is. Our guy Ken Zales says it all the time. Well, you didn't know who John Harbaugh was. Correct. You're right. I also didn't know how Matt Eberflus was. How's that worked out? The notion that it worked out one time to just hire somebody that nobody had ever heard of and turn him into a head coach versus the millions of times that that's been done that it hasn't been successful is not the evidence that the next one will be successful. It's this thing that we do. We are obsessed with the idea that if you just change this, the results change. And we only say it to make ourselves feel better because the team lost a game. I think Mike Tomlin's a better coach than John Harbaugh. Now what? Now what do we do? Where do we go from there? So do we just shut it down? Do we just say
we can play 2 less games now?
I guess. But this is the problem. The John Harbaugh haters of America are J-O-ing to the tweets that we're sharing about from Mike Floyd. They're all, oh man, this is the one. Today's guys, I don't know what to tell you. It's frustrating to lose, man. It sucks. And I do think at some point, as I've said multiple times this week, if it continues to be the Steelers and the Chiefs that beat you, then I do think that becomes a fireable offense. I think the Steelers game in December is massive for John Harbaugh. Massive. Because I do think it becomes a fireable offense. But today, we're We're just trying to get, again, you are just trying to get your rocks off because this is what makes you horny, is hating on John Harbaugh. I had someone literally tweet. This is an actual tweet that somebody sent and retweeted the quote from Mike Florio. Mo said, 2012 Super Bowl and rookie Lamar Jackson set this franchise back for many years. It's an actual thing that a human being said. Winning the Super Bowl set the franchise back for many years. Do you hear yourself? Like, do you?
Would have been better to only have one Super Bowl right now as a
God.
franchise. Would have been better.
Because if we just didn't win that Super Bowl, we could have a different head coach and
Probably still one Super Bowl in franchise history.
like this thing that we just convince ourselves if you have a generational talent that you are. It takes failure to have not won Super Bowls. Well, how's that going in Cincinnati? Or in Buffalo? Where they might very well win Super Bowls in the future. The same way that they might very well win Super Bowl in the future in Baltimore. But, like, again, this is the galaxy brain stuff that we convince ourselves any old coach would have won a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson by now. Because
there's a 50-50 chance, you know?
Well, I mean, that's what we do.
He'll
We
either
just
win it or he won't.
again, step 1, fire coach. Step 2, step 3, win Super Bowl. It's legitimately the way that we operate. And you know, again, some of this is, you know, societal. Some of this is there's deeper pictures here, which none of it is me saying John Harbaugh's perfect. He sure as hell isn't. But this thing that we do where we convince ourselves the Ravens continue to be good year in and year out in spite of the coach because we don't want it to have anything to do with the coach is insanity, man. It's otherworldly. I think players are more important than coaches. I do. I think there's a reason why, you know, the Patriots are never bad with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, but we're bad with Bill Belichick and not Tom Brady. Like, I think that players are more important than coaches. But the notion that any old coach can win with great players is a fallacy. It's just not true. Which doesn't mean there aren't examples. Like, do I know that Brian Billick was a high-level NFL coach? I think he was a good one. I certainly don't think there's an argument for Brian Billick to be in the Hall of Fame, although somebody would have to put his actual accomplishments next to Tony Dungy's, like, and tell me about that, because we're not allowed to say that Tony Dungy's in the Hall of Fame because he was the first black head coach to win a Super Bowl. We have to. It's a very weird bit that we do with that. There are examples of lots of things, but we just traipse into this like world where we have some definitive proof that John Harbaugh is a bad coach, which just ain't true. It's not.
Too bad Woody Johnson's not our owner, you know?
Yeah.
Then
things would be great.
big.
If we just always fired coaches. Like the moment that something doesn't look good, like we just fire.
And then fire the GM, and
right?
then try to bench the quarterback.
Fire everybody.
Yeah.
Just make fun of him. Might be onto something with the quarterback. Probably.
Well, yeah.
Like,
Maybe he would have. I mean, if they had done that week 3
he's
like
not
he wanted
wrong
to,
that the guy
maybe.
stinks, but I get why you're not going to bench him when they wanted. Like, they wanted to bench him like with the season was still.
It was week 3, wasn't it?
Yeah,
or 4 maybe.
Whatever the Broncos game was. I don't remember what week it was because Lord knows I'm not paying that much of attention to the Jets. That was was that the 10-9 game? Was that what it was? The Broncos game?
Yeah,
it was in the rain. Yeah. It was miserable. It's boring, but the take is you got to let the season play out. And there has to be a fireable offense. I'll always come back to that. It's easy for all of us to just want to fire everybody because it's no sweat off of our ass. It doesn't matter to us. If we're wrong, who cares? Whereas the people that are actually, like the things that you guys present as the reason why you'd fire someone, if you did it in your business, you would be laughed out of the boardroom. well, yeah, we're good, but we're not good enough. That's not how we make decisions. That's not what? It's not the way that it works. You don't present that as your argument. I mean, maybe the dude bros. I don't know how dude bros, like the finance bros, that might work in that world where they're just like, it's really cool, $1 billion. It might very well be Sean Parker, talking to Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know. Right?
Zuckerberg's got a level head.
I'm not in the dude bro world. But that wouldn't be how a rational person would make that decision. To say, hey, we're constantly successful, constantly good, always profitable, always, but we gotta get rid of that guy. Well, for who? Well, for somebody that's never proven themselves. Oh?
And then best case scenario, they win it in their first 4 years?
Yeah, maybe. Right. Maybe. And I'm not telling you that it won't work. And again, I do think there becomes a fireable offense. Like the same thing. If someone is successful as a CEO, but like that company has said, we've got to break into Asia. We have to. And no matter what, they're not breaking in on Asia. They're doing well everywhere else, but they can't break in. And that was the goal they were given. Well, then I can see. And you could argue that in that comparison, beating the Steelers and the Chiefs becomes the breaking into Asia, right? Like that this is, okay, you're great, and we appreciate that. But this is our goal now as a company. As a company, we've got to break into a new market. We've established success, track record. Now we need this. And if you look back and they say, okay, I got a plan for that. And 4 or 5 years into the plan, you've made no gains in Asia, then you might turn around and say, hey, I appreciate all the success that you've had, but that was what we needed to do, and you didn't do it. And that's my parallel for where I'm at with the Chiefs and the Steelers. Like, you got to prove it against those teams. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe you're going to get through the playoffs and you don't have to face either one of those teams.
Yes.
That's possible. Super Bowl counts all the same, man.
Go Broncos. Go Bills.
Right,
go.
right. And that's just the reality of it. But we're getting to that place. It's not today. We're just frustrated that the Ravens lost. We're pissed off that the Ravens lost to the Steelers. Everybody is. I mean, we all deal with it different ways. And so we get, we fight on game day after the show because everybody's pissed off. Justin Tucker missed 2 kicks. I'm pissed off about it too. Not as much as everybody else is. But we get there because we're all pissed off that the Ravens lost. I get it. But as I keep saying, it's boring. It's all we've got. All we know how to do is fire the coach. Eternally. It's all we know how to do. We don't have conversations about anything else. It's just, they lost the game, fire the coach. Ben Roethlisberger says Mike Tomlin's out coach. He's got to go. What? What? I don't even, if you want to say the penalties are a reflection of John Harbaugh, and that's why you think that you can make Sunday about John Harbaugh, okay. Okay. It's flimsy, but I get it. It's that buck stops here mentality. Like, maybe he should be kicking more guys. Maybe he should be walking around. And Patrick McCary, you were down. I don't know. Like, that's not the game plan. I know that. I know the game plan is not hold. Part of the penalties this year is we kind of have to acknowledge that while maybe it wasn't as bad as it was in week 1, the offensive line is not the biggest strength of this football team. And that has led to an elevated number of penalties that are related to the offensive line. Does that forgive other penalties? No. But, part of the conversation is, there's been some talk this week. Maybe after the bye, do you switch out McCary for Voorhees again? I don't know. It didn't look great with Voorhees the first time around. I don't know how comfortable you'd be about that. But I get it. The penalties have been a problem, and McCary just he hasn't proven to be that guy. So I understand why it's a conversation. And I'm listening to it. If that can help clean up some of the penalties. But is the trade-off for that you're under more duress? I don't know. I don't have that answer. That's what Ben Roethlisberger has to say on footballers.
Footballin. Footballin.
Hug it, chug it, football. The podcast.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, there we go. That's okay.